We are live. We are live. Hang on. What's up, Charles? How you doing, bro?
I'm doing fine, my brother. Doing fine.
Uh, all right. Here we go. Everything is all good. Aloha, everybody. Welcome Monday night. Special show tonight. We got Lieutenant Robert Cavaco, also known as Bobby from SHOPO. He's the SHOPO State of Hawaii Organization of Police Officers, and he's the president of SHOPO, and he's going to be joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about House Bill 1567, which passed the legislature and is at the governor's desk for signature. And basically, what this does is remove the requirement for bail in nonviolent Class C felonies and below. So, burglaries, thefts, car thefts, ID theft, criminal property damage, ripping off businesses, ripping off your car, or stuff inside your car, damaging your house, any non-violent crime that is a Class C felony or below. Bottom line is you'll get arrested by the police, you'll get taken to the station, you'll be fingerprinted, booked, and released. No bail, and you will have a court date to show up in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it is. So there is a lot of pushback, a lot of opposition. There's a lot of support for it as well. And we'll talk about that tonight. But Charlie, you was a cop. I was a cop. I for the life of me, cannot figure out uh, what they were thinking. I, I I am at a loss. I am at a loss.
hmm Well,
So
there's always a there's always a like a connection. There's always something attached. Hi, I'm on live. You saw Mrs. Iona pop up behind.
oh no.
No, okay, we're on live. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's Mrs. Iona. But as I was saying, it's funny wh- when you're dealing with the law in and of itself, right? You try to make it a standalone, but yet there's always an attachment to it. So now we're at this crossroads where the word is non-violent, right? But the
Hmm.
thing is, a crime has still happened. So if y- I mean, what is if a person gets commits a crime and gets caught? What did you think they were gonna do? They committed the crime. It was like, oh shucks, it was a mistake. It's not a mistake. It was a willful, intentional crime committed. So how does that willful and intentional crime get away scot free? I mean, you're putting you're putting bail amount, so you can guarantee, there's some type of guarantee the person will come back, right?
Hmm.
You take away that monetary amount, there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
What happens the second time he gets caught? If he's non-violent, you can have a really passive burglar, right? Just loves burglarizing, but has not one drop of violence in their blood.
Yeah. Or this is the thing, Charlie. So you have a burglary, whether it's at your business or the burglar does, you know, is going to break into your house. You might be sleeping. You wake up, and there's a confrontation. Something bad happens. Yeah. So maybe I think to say non-violent crimes, I consider when you break into someone's home, when you break into someone's car, while it may not be physically violent, the chance of violence occurring is there. So you cannot allow these people. This is the scenario I gave to my wife last night. We were talking about this, and I said, and this is what happens. This is what happens. So you go work or whatever, you go to the store, you come back, your car is gone. Somebody steals your car, and they later find your car torched at the side of the road or smashed into a guardrail or a tree or a pole, and the suspect is gone. The police show up, they take their pictures, they take their fingerprints, and then they tell you, now you got to move your car. You got to get your car out of here. So you now got to call a tow truck. You got to pay the hundreds of dollars, and now you have a car that's totaled, burnt, whatever the case may be. And this suspect who gets arrested will be booked and will be released. Um, I don't understand the logic. I just don't. And again, I think we'll hear from the SHOPO side, the police side. I watched a few of the news coverage. I know I saw one of the introducers, I think his name was Matsunaga or whatever his name was on the news tonight. He says, well, we never got any testimony from the police chiefs. That might have made a difference. Why you need a police chief to tell you something that's obvious? You know, why you need, I mean, what are you all thinking? So it's going to be an exciting discussion tonight. I know Lieutenant Cavaco was just on Stolen Stuff Hawaii Facebook page live. Him and another police officer, I didn't get his name, and they were discussing this for quite a while. I watched the whole thing, and so we'll talk a lot about what's going on, the ramifications, what they're seeing on the streets. You know, it's awkward. Yeah, the only Charlie Chucky says the only way they should be released is if they stole soap or a razor blade or a can of corned beef. Yeah, I think what we're saying is that there are certain crimes that obviously would, in my opinion, would fit an ROR type of release. Um, but they included felonies in there, and I think even Chucky would agree. Class C felonies and below, and there's a whole list of them. It's crazy. And again, for me, as a county legislator for a long time, there's some things that are called common sense, and that the other big problem with this is whether or not a person should be released should be left up to the judge, not a legislator. It's two separate governments. It's the legislative branch, and then there's a judicial branch. And I think the legislature crossed the line. I think they violated the separation of power. That is yet to be seen. Governor Ige says he's going to have his legal team review it, but I just don't think that was a wise thing to do. I don't think, but it was approved by many legislators, and it's quite frustrating. So
Let me ask you this: if it's everything starts from the time the person is apprehended, right? Once the crime starts, right? That
yeah,
clock it starts to tick, and that person is out on bail. So I guess my question to it all is, once that clock starts, why would you want to try to work the case?
you,
I
you,
mean,
you mean you mean knowing that the guy gonna be released?
yeah.
Absolutely,
Well,
absolutely.
why,
It's a
why
very
would
good
you?
point, Charlie. Very
Why
good point.
would you want to work the case? If
Mhm.
I'm gonna put hard effort into getting all the facts set up, and I might spend maybe 2 to 4 months just tracking this guy down because he didn't show up because we let him out scot free. What
Yeah,
makes you think on this luscious green earth of ours that I am going to spend one iota of my time playing chase master with this individual? I mean, he didn't put himself there, right? He committed the crime. I didn't put myself there, but I had to work the case. And I'm just saying, hey, enough is enough. I mean, if this was something that was thought of from the beginning, don't you think years ago we would have removed the bell structure?
yeah,
You only bring it up now because we don't have room. I hear that all the time. We don't have room. Yet We seem to forget, what about those violent criminals that did get out when we had to, that period of time because of COVID had to be released and recommitted some pretty violent crimes? What happened to them? They don't talk about them because they want everything to be downplayed. I think you should talk to the families who are victimized, how they feel. They feel like they got raked over the coals, not once, not twice, but three times. And that is the sad thing about this whole thing. So,
That
maybe,
is the
maybe,
truth.
maybe, I love our legislators. There are many good ones, but I would like for them to maybe do a 1 week ride along and go right along and see how it's done. I think, if they had a up close and personal look at things, probably their vote may be different.
Yeah,
What do you
like I
think?
said, Charlie. Yeah, like I said, as a former legislator, I had something called common sense. If you see the red stove, the flame on the stove.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't need for go put my hand in a stove to know that it's hot. I just know because I get common sense. These legislators cannot sit with a straight face and tell me that they think in their heart this is a good bill. That in fact that this bill will help the victims and the people of our state. They cannot look at me straight in the eye and tell me that because they would be lying. This is the worst thing I've seen in a very long time. Anyway, here we go. Lieutenant Cavaco, and hey, Steve, I was watching you guys on Stolen Stuff Hawaii, and I saw the two of you, and I said, "Damn it! I should have told Bobby he could bring on someone else." And then I didn't know how long you guys were gonna go, so I said, it's all right. And nothing happens by accident. Appreciate you guys, Lieutenant Robert Cavaco. Steve, what's your rank, and are you a sergeant?
Yeah, sure, Mel. Steve Keogh, Honolulu PD, 15 years of service. I'm a patrol sergeant in urban Honolulu, District 1.
Awesome. And Lieutenant Cavaco, quickly, what's
Yes,
your
Lieutenant Cavaco, President of SHOPO. I'm with HPD. I'm a lieutenant in the traffic division, responsible for vehicle homicide section and our night enforcement unit. 22 years in, 20 years in patrol, and thanks for having us on, Mel. It worked out perfect with the ending of the last the last one we had with Michael Kitchens.
Well, that is Charlie Iona. You guys all know Uncle Charlie, former Maui PD. I'm former Kauai PD. And I gotta say, I watched that Stolen Stuff Hawaii, and I was, I cannot help but get pumped up and kind of aggravated listening to the two of you as well as is that Michael? His name Kitchens?
Yeah, Michael
Yeah,
Kitchens.
yeah. I mean, he's been leading the charge on trying to bring this bill to light, and I'm hoping that after tonight, we'll have a lot of people on our show in the next few days. And before the night is over, I will post a graphic of all of the legislators and the senators that supported this bill. And I expect our villagers to email, call, text, whatever, and let them know how disappointed you are of what they just did. Charlie and I, we have this weird relationship with legislators. We know and are good friends with many of them that are in top leadership roles. But personal friendships is one thing, professional relationships is a different thing, and sometimes you gotta call it like you see them. And this is one that I believe um, we gotta stand up and we gotta make sure this governor vetoes this bill. And when he does veto, we gotta make sure that our legislators, and again, I'll show up the list of names tonight, will not try to override the veto. But anyway, with that, Charlie, any opening comments before we turn it over to the lieutenant to give us a kind of overview and background of the bill?
Well, this is, first of all, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. This is one of the few times that I have to say, normally I don't get my blood boiling, but it's sort of boiling right now. So with that said, Mel, I just have to say, to bring my tempo down on behalf of my sponsor right here. He says peanut butter cup, and there's the sticker.
Oh,
There you go. There you go. I love it.
you know,
Uncle Charlie, when I came into SHOPO, I said, Bobby, what are those 2 king-size Snickers? What are you planning on eating both of those before we go on? He's like, no, I'm going to show them to Uncle Charlie and Mel. I was like, okay.
There you go. But like I said, it's before both of you came on, my comment was if things as it is now, it's not supposed to be this way. I think years ago we would have changed things, right? We wouldn't wait until we're in the 11th hour. And you know, I learned a long time ago, even in traffic, and then going over to the medical examiner's office, when someone loses a life, and this bill, I mean, I hope and pray there are certain caveats to this bill, because it sounds to me the word violent or violence in there. You can have a neg harm case, and there's really no violence involved. It was just an accident that resulted in a death. What do you do to the family? I mean, you're going to be dragged. If the family says, "Hey, what's the guy doing now?" What do you say to them? So there's so many taglines that will go according to this bill if it does pass, and I really don't know what the remedy is. All I know is the pain and suffering a lot of people will go through. That's what I see.
well, that's kind of how we got to wait and see. And I hate this wait and see crap because governor has, I think, 45 days to veto, um, and I don't hear much other than what we're trying to stir up. But media is kind of anyway. So, Lieutenant Cavaco, we'll start with you.
So
Can you give
Mel,
us an overview and what the heck is going on? You might want to talk about, as we all know, the increase in crimes that are occurring on your island right now in your county. And it's quite troubling to us here, even on the neighbor islands.
well, with the passage of this bill, 1567, this bail reform, ultimately the bill, states that any nonviolent petty misdemeanor, or nonviolent Class C felony, they'll be released on their own recognizance. In essence, it eliminates cash bail. And what we're seeing now in Honolulu, and I think we're seeing it on the outer islands as well, is an increase in all crime, especially violent crime. We're seeing a lot of shootings, we're seeing a lot of stabbings, a lot of assaults. We're seeing a heavy increase of property crime, car theft, criminal property damage, theft in general, shoplifting. And the passage of this bill, ultimately, it's gonna be worse. And I don't understand why our legislators didn't take more of a comprehensive look of what's going on in New York and what's going on in California, because they did this 2 years ago. They passed bail reform in New York. They did it 2 years ago. They had overcrowding in their jail on Rikers Island. They had approximately 7,000 inmates, and crime was at an all-time low. And because they felt it was overcrowded, in order to reduce the population, they figured, let's pass bail reform. So yes, it immediately reduced the population by 20%, down to a little over 5,000 inmates. But then what did we see follow soon after? An increase in crime. Bail was generated or proposed by the government way back in order to ensure that the one that was being accused for the crime show up for their court date. To make sure that yes, they are innocent until proven guilty, but that's the commodity, so to say, to make sure that they show up to their court date, and when the case is adjudicated, they're going to get that commodity back, minus whatever less court fees that they take out. But that's what bail is supposed to be. When our victims, of these crimes, even these low-level crimes, whether it's getting your car stolen or somebody breaking into your business and taking your item, your property, they're not worried whether or not, if we catch the offender has $500 or more in order to bail out. They're concerned with what just happened to them. They want that person to be held accountable. And that's what the whole case is here.
Yeah, absolutely right. I don't know why um, such a push for the rights of defendants, of suspects, of criminals. I mean, that's the way I look at it. The legislature, Senate and House, got together to figure out a way how they could make it better for criminals, not the victims. You know, the overcrowding is not my problem. It's not your problem. It's not the victim's problem. It's a failure of this state to properly manage the correction system in our state. That's bottom line. And rather than fix the problem, which is not enough cells, not enough transitional facilities, not enough drug centers, not enough mental health centers, we keep them all in jail. If we took care of those people, if we took out the people that need help more than jail, you'd have room. But we've failed, right? We threw everybody in there, and I guess this session they said, let's figure out a way how we can help the bad guys. This session, because they vote, let's go figure out how we can help them. Steve, what are your thoughts? I mean, I loved hearing you speak, both of you, but you brought up some really good points on the stolen stuff Hawaii. What are your thoughts right now? What are you thinking?
Mel, Uncle Charlie, I'm really happy and grateful to be here with both of you and your audience. I'm in complete disbelief that the legislators that signed their name to this train wreck of a legislation, if they're supposed to represent the people, my question would be, are we saying that the hardworking people on Kauai and on the Big Island and on Maui and here in Honolulu, that this was a piece of legislation that they wanted? Did these legislators have their phones ringing off the hook that people were clamoring that we needed bail reform and we needed to somehow be sympathetic for those individuals in a lower socioeconomic bracket, that if they commit a criminal offense, that because they can't bail out, somehow that's an issue that we need to tackle? I don't think so. I don't believe it. I think there's an arrogance right now in the state legislature. And I think what they've done by signing this bill and putting it on the governor's desk is they have made every county unsafe. And they've made the job of those men and women statewide that work in county law enforcement, they've made our job more dangerous. Because for me, working on the streets in Honolulu, all this is going to do is embolden and make those that want to commit these crimes more brazen. Now you might say, well, Steve, what if it's a first timer? I can tell you right now, Mel and Uncle Charlie over here, the people that are doing the crimes, they've been arrested 10, 20, 30, 45 times, 50 times. We don't hardly get much first timers causing problems over here. And I would ask the legislators, to your point, Mel, are you thinking about the victims here? And how about this? The insensitivity of these legislators to think that just because it wasn't a criminal offense against the person, that somehow because it was a criminal offense against property, that makes it somehow less bad. I would argue, gentlemen, that people, even if they witness some type of property crime, if they see this kind of thing, they can be traumatized. And I think it's a complete disregard and very arrogant and insensitive. Not only that the legislator would put our communities in this position, but that they would somehow stipulate that crimes of person and crimes of property somehow, you know what? It's not so bad. Not so bad. So as a patrol sergeant, the men and women are going to continue to put the uniform on everybody and do the job. But man, these elected leaders, and you know what? I wouldn't even call them leaders at this point. They don't lead anybody. They've led us into a disaster is what they've done. The men and women that put the uniform on, they're still going to do their job to the best of their ability, but they've actually made it more dangerous. And the communities that we're in charge of protecting are actually not going to be as safe as they should be. I don't mean to ramble or get on my soapbox, but I'll intro with that, Mel. I apologize if I talk too much.
No.
Sorry.
I think what you've just said, I'm going to echo something that uh, Bobby said, and that is when you get someone from a lower socioeconomical class that cannot afford bail, right? I think the question needs to be asked: why did you commit the crime in the first place, right? If you know more money for going to the store and buy something, why'd you go steal it? I mean, you gotta know that you're gonna steal something, you're gonna get caught. Now, before you folks came on, I said there are many out there that are repeat offenders who are not violent. So are you saying that if they continually commit a Class C felony, but because there's no violence involved, this is going to be a basic turnstile operation? And so my comment earlier was, why even work at it? If there's no guarantee the guy going to show up because all of my hard work going into this, and that's something that I wanted to ask you, Steve, being from the urban core, okay? Something where, you know, outer islands, maybe you find in every 10 feet, will find one person, as an example. Yet in Honolulu urban core, being born and raised in Kali, we know that every 10 feet will find 5 to 6 people. So we see how the congestion is right from the get go.
Mhm.
The laws were set up so we don't have chaos. What this bill does, it just goes adversely the opposite direction. It's going to create some chaos now, I believe. And you two guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my fear, because I'm looking at some of the comments from some of our viewers tonight. One person has been traumatized because she had a home invasion. Now what? You can have a home invasion, but as long as there's not any violence, you know, just to break into someone's house, don't you think that you have to have some type of violence to break through the front door or break through the window? But yet when they get caught, it's like, oh, play coy. I'm not violent because I know as long as I don't show that violent tendencies, aloha oi, process me, fingerprint me, and all that, I'm out of here. That's
Mhm.
what's going to happen.
And real quick, let me just add to that because I spoke before you came on. I was sharing with Charlie. The home invasion, the burglary, whatever you want, unauthorized entry into a dwelling now they created, may not be violent until someone wakes up and then there becomes a confrontation. So while he or she may have broken in and broken out and there was no violence, the potential of a very bad outcome, and you guys know this more than anyone else there at HPD, is real. And I think that is what the legislatures have kind of not thought about. I really quick, I want to put this one up because this is an argument that has been said, and in fact, the legislature has. And I didn't read all the testimony, but a lot of the testimony that were submitted in support of this bill were focused around this argument that it was a rich versus poor. And before I get you guys input, I just want to advise or clarify that the process, right? A subject gets arrested. Police officer has probable cause. They arrest the person. They bring him in. He cannot bail out. He gets in front of a judge. Within 48 hours, he gets in front of a judge. And the judge is going to make that determination. Now, he's going to sit in a cell block. He's not going to be at Halava. He's not going to be at Old Triple C. He's going to be in a cell block. He's going to go in front of a judge within 48 hours. Prosecutor is going to put their case on to show if, in fact, there is probable cause. And a judge is going to decide what happens, whether the bill gets dropped, reduced, ROR, kicked out. This bill takes that away from the courts, put it in the hands of a bunch of legislators. So I kind of wanted to get you guys' take on that, and I just wanted to clarify that this isn't a rich versus poor thing. Rich or poor, the judge is going to make that determination whether or not you need to be held or not. That's my point. So I kind of wanted to just put that out there before we discuss that argument, Lieutenant.
This is definitely not a rich versus poor, you know, um, discussion when we're talking about bail. Um, I think we need to mention also that over the weekend, um, there's judges that do come down to the receiving desk at HPD's main cell block, and they take a look at who's being detained, especially for petty misdemeanors and misdemeanors, traffic offenses, DUI, and that such. And if they can't make bail, the judges do release them. They ROR them. So somebody that is charged with criminal property damage in the fourth degree, a petty misdemeanor, say their bail is $250, and they can't make the bail. They tried calling whoever, and they're back in the cell block because of either the amount of detainees that the cell block has, or whatever the population count is at OCCC. The judge will come in and make that decision and look at the case and say, oh, okay, well, this person has a low number of arrests, and the judge feels that maybe they're going to show up to court. So they come in and they release these people. So it is being the judges do have that discretion at this point, with that. And along the other lines, if it happens on a weekday, in essence, the person just spends the night in jail, because the next morning they come to do the court run, and then they get arraigned properly if they can't make bail, and they go in front of the court. And already these low-level offenses where bail was set by the desk sergeant or the desk lieutenant, 9 times out of 10, they are just being set a court date. If they don't have a lengthy criminal rap sheet, and the judges are just scheduling a court date and then releasing them on their own recognizance.
Steve?
Well, Mel, you said something pretty powerful that is disturbing to me, not only as a law enforcement officer, but as a citizen. You basically have legislators that, through this bill, have taken the discretion away from the judges in the courtrooms. And I don't know about you boys, but I don't think that our elected leaders, I don't want them putting on the black robe and sitting behind the bench. I don't think that's their talent. I don't think that's their skill set. I think they need to stay in their lane. And what they've done, to your point, Mel, is they've taken the judges now and tied their hands. And for those that have the opinion that bail discriminates against poor people, let's go back to our criminal justice system. The United States of America has, without a doubt, the most fair and equitable criminal justice system in the world. Now, we can sit here and poke holes in it because nothing's 100% perfect. But if you were going to do a criminal offense throughout the world, the United States of America is going to give you the most fair and just trial that you could possibly want. I think the majority of people would agree with that. With that said, bail was created because our criminal justice system says that you are innocent until you are proven guilty. And the reason why bail came to play in the first place is because people weren't going to sit in jail until they were able to go through the criminal justice process. Now, is it that unreasonable to ask a person that is not convicted but charged with a criminal offense, that to hold them accountable to continually participate in the judicial process and not leave town and not skip out and not be accountable for their charges, we ask them to post a monetary amount. Now, if you don't have a lot of money, could that be a challenge for you? Sure. But then you know what? My sympathy stops pretty much right there, because you know what? If you don't have money, don't do the crime. And for those people that say, well, bail reform, Mel, bail reform is unfair for those that don't have. Okay, so let's explore that. Let's go down this rabbit hole. So how about this? You have somebody that's down on his luck. He doesn't have money for food. He goes into the nom-nom and decides that he wants to take a loaf of bread, some bologna, a Gatorade, and a pack of cigarettes. And he walks out the door. Then you have an attorney that walks in, 6-figure salary, decides to do the exact same thing. Okay? Are we going to go to a society where we have a system of the criminal justice system basically we become to have like a 2-tier system, Mel, right, Uncle Charlie? Where depending on how much money you make, that depends on your level of accountability. I completely disagree with that. And I think bail reform really is opening itself up to a very dangerous move in our society, where we start to say, just because you're not successful or you don't make a certain amount of money, you're not going to get held accountable like other people that maybe are more financially secure. I don't live in a $2 million house because my income doesn't support that. That doesn't mean that the guy in the $2 million house should move out of his house and now all of a sudden we both live in $50,000 houses. I don't support that. I don't support that. Our communities are going to be put in a situation where offenders that commit these crimes are not going to take the criminal justice system seriously. Now you talk about bail reform and then bail company and bail bondsmen and corporate bail bonds. We need individuals that are accused of a criminal offense to be held accountable, that they're going to make their court dates. And Mel, I apologize if I'm rambling. Uncle Charlie, let me just finish here with this point. If an offender does not show up to court, okay, there's a warrant issued for the offender's arrest. Well, let me ask you something. If there's no motivation if there's not a financial incentive to show up to court, do you think people are going to be more or less likely to show up to court? Then if they don't show up to court, we already have a shortage with county law enforcement. How are we then going to find the manpower to go and remand these individuals into the custody of the courts when the judge issued the warrant? And then how much money is that going to cost? You see how short-sighted this is? If people don't show up to court, that puts an extra burden on the sheriff's department, on the county law enforcement now to try to go get these people and remand them into court. To me, this is just common sense. Some people might see it a different way, but I don't see it as such.
Yeah, that creates an extra caseload for the officers on all the islands because now you're going to go chase. Even now with bail, small bail, if it's a $50, $100, even $500, these guys aren't showing up for court, and but they lose their bail money. That's where the accountability, right? You're going to lose that commodity that you talked about earlier. You're going to pay a price, and then you're going to get an additional charge. But they have no skin in the game, right? If they go in and they get the paperwork done, they get fingerprinted, and they leave, there's no incentive, really. These guys are criminals. And I know this argument is going to go on and on and on about rich versus poor, but at the end of the day, and I know Mara said that most of the cases are being released ROR. I don't think that's what the lieutenant said. He said that the judges come in on weekends and it's a case-by-case basis. If you stole a Snicker bar, which Charlie does occasionally, if you steal a Snicker bar because you're hungry, I don't think any law enforcement officer
Okay, next.
would be upset if you let that person go on his own or her own recognizance. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the person that broke into your house. We talk about a person who stole your car, maybe your only means of transportation, and ended up crashing it. That person, rich or poor, should not be allowed to walk out of that police station without posting a bill to assure, like you said, his participation in the process.
Mel,
So,
here's one thing to consider. I think before this legislation even came up for consideration, we should have visited cases where you have an individual that their docket, their file is so thick from repeat offenses, to find out why do they keep on reoffending. Somebody should go back to those individuals and say, okay, this is how thick your case is. But just to let you know now, all these cases involve some kind of bail, but you kept on reoffending, right? Now we're gonna take away this bail. I wonder if now that folder is gonna be this thick. I have a funny feeling it is. I have a funny feeling it is. But see, nobody in places when you see that's why even for surgeons, they can be the best in the world, but they're gonna get a second opinion because they got one shot at it. And if they cut the wrong blood vessel, it may cost somebody's life. I just wish and prayed that someone down in the legislature did go and consult somebody that understands this, that understands bail reform and what it's going to do in Hawaii. Okay, I want them to at least compare apples with apples, not go apples and oranges, because everything that we've spoken about, I'm just looking at the comments. If we were so wrong, a lot of these people kind of agree what we're saying. A lot of these people that are tuning in, watching this. So it would make sense to get some really hardcore consensus on this, whether they're going down the right path or not. Because once it's done, you know how long it takes to kind of untie everything, right? And in the meantime, what happens? The men and women in blue, or the sheriffs, or whatever law enforcement agency is tasked with continually playing the game of chase master. We got somebody running around because we gave them a free out. And maybe we'll get a comment from a legislator or two that's saying, no, that wasn't the intent.
Yeah.
Well, I would invite them to come on and share what the intent was, so we get a better understanding of this thing. Because right now, as it is, it doesn't look like a really good position to be in. Put it that way.
And Mel and Uncle Charlie, this bail reform bill, it does have a backstory, I believe, and it's tied into building a new prison on Oahu. The governor had publicly stated, or actually it started several years ago, where they're going to build a prison in Halava on the quarantine area where the animal quarantine is. And you have Max Otani, who's the head of DPS right now, who publicly stated that OCCC is beyond repair. It's falling apart, it's overcrowded. And so the governor wanted to build this prison. And I think what the legislators, in their discussions, I think they didn't want to go down that road. And they ended up passing this bail reform to try and see if they could reduce the overcrowding in the prisons. But whether it's next year, 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, ultimately a new jail is going to need to be built in order to replace OCCC. And I wish that the legislators maybe could have put a better plan together where they have, $2 billion in surplus money, and put some of that money towards a new jail. And then in turn, use OCCC as kind of a rehab facility to try and rehab some of these folks that are reoffending. We're finding on the streets, obviously, that those that are committing these crimes, they have a drug problem, they have a meth problem, they have alcohol problems. Some of them are mentally ill. And if we turned in that OCCC facility to a place where we can offer them services to try and rehabilitate them, we have thousands of teachers that are retired. Bring them back on 89-day contracts and give them educational services to these offenders. If they don't have their GED, allow them to get their GED. Give them some college level courses. Teach them a trade. Have religious services. Something to where you try and rehab the individual, so that when they come back out into the community, they're not going to reoffend, and then they can interject themselves and be a good member of society. I think that would be a better approach.
Very, very good statement there. I very good. I just hope in rehabilitating our known burglars that they don't take up rope climbing, because I don't think it's going to be to anyone's advantage.
Uncle Charlie, they'd have to, if they don't, they'll just have to stick with ranch houses, right?
Right, right. But you brought up a real good point, because to me, Laumaka, right? Laumaka is already past its prime.
Mhm.
We got to put them in at least somewhere that can be more productive. Lamaka is just a waiting place for them to say, okay, I'm just counting down my days. I got 2 more weeks left. I'm just doing my time, and I'm gone. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I wanted to point out too that PBS Insights had done a special. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was last month, And they had Max Otani on and from the DPS, and he also articulated that not only is it Oahu that needs a new jail, the outer islands, the jails on the outer islands too need whether it's refurbishment or to be improved, because that too has been neglected for way too long. So, and it's not about just trying to grab people and throw them in jail. It's just having the proper facility to house these folks, to make sure that the conditions are humane and whatnot, whatever constitutional things that we have to follow.
I was quite surprised at how quick this thing moved. This thing was, I mean, the legislature rarely moves this quickly. It's whether they're going to do a study or they're going to do a task force. They're going to set up a special committee. If they had done that, if they had done their research, if they had checked with other jurisdictions that saw, and the data is out, that these bail reform measures actually cause an increase in crime after the fact, long term. If they did a study of capacities of our prisons, which they already did, they had the task force or whatever you want to call it. They came up with a plan to build a new prison. But I'll be the first to admit right here that not everybody that's in prison today, statewide, should be in prison. There are some of these guys that would be better off in transitional housing in houses that homes that have programs in there. They monitoring, electronic surveillance or monitoring. You all familiar with the drug court program as one of the greatest programs available for offenders of drug offenses. It's not easy. In fact, some of them tell me that they felt it might have been easier just to serve their sentence than participate in drug court. But the benefit of drug court is if you graduate, your cases get dismissed. So the carrot is a sweet carrot. But my point is, if we had properly treated the people that need treatment, if we had properly transition these people into programs where it would benefit them and the society, then we would have ample space in the jails for the people that truly need to be incarcerated. But no. They listened to all this testimony that this was a rich versus poor, white versus black, men of color, not, and they fell for that without getting the data, without looking at our current situation. And I think that's what bothers me the most, at how rapid this thing went through. And I just still, I know a lot of those people that voted, and I'm surprised and shocked that they voted yes. I really am. Steve, your thoughts on programs, your thoughts on rehabbing those that can be rehabbed. I'm just curious to get an active law enforcement person's opinion.
I think that rehabilitation is critical. I think it's absolutely essential. But let's be clear here. If you commit a criminal offense and you are found guilty, before any rehabilitation can be discussed, you need to be accountable for what you did. Okay? And if that means you're going to be incarcerated for a period of time, we should do it in the most humane way possible, trying to save the taxpayers a little bit of money. And at the same time, hopefully, giving the offender some type of skill set that they can use when they come out so they don't reoffend. Now, we could talk for days and days on how to do that successfully. But Bobby made great points. Mel, you made great points. So did you, Uncle Charlie. I just want to throw something in here. Building a new jail does not mean, to Bobby's point, that we're going to be in a rush to fill them up. And every one of us on this program right now is either former or current law enforcement. And Mel, you were extremely compassionate. You talked about how drug court worked. You talked about how those that are mentally ill shouldn't be incarcerated. They should get the appropriate treatment. I echo all those sentiments. And to Bobby's point, in order to house these people and give them the programs that they need, we build a jail to better service those individuals. And I used this example on an earlier show, and that is this. When a community makes a decision that they need a new hospital or medical center, the people in those communities don't say, oh, you know what? they're building that hospital to promote an unhealthy lifestyle. Or you know what? This hospital expanding, they're promoting recklessness when it comes to your health. No, they want to be prepared. They want to be able to service the community. Building a jail, if the need is there, is responsible government. Now, how we pay for it, and if we do bonds, and if it's a public partnership, private partnership, that's all stuff that needs to be discussed. But at the very basic level, whether you're, let's say, more for the bail reform or not for the bail reform, I think we all could agree that if we don't have a jail that can house the people that are there, do it in a humane way, allow the staff and the professionals there to treat the people that need treatment, I think we could all support the benefit of a new jail. Because I can tell you right now, overcrowding should not be the reason why we let these individuals out, because we could be letting the wrong individuals out, and then that puts the community at risk. So I think we need to get over this stigma that building a new jail is somehow sending a message that we don't believe in rehabilitation, or we believe that everybody needs to get locked up. That's not the case. And I actually think people would be surprised to hear that law enforcement officers that put on the uniform, we're all about giving people second chances. I'll tell you right now, if people can be rehabilitated the right way, let's do it. Let's do it. But at the end of the day, if you did something, you got to be held accountable. And again, if the corrections executives that run the State Department of Corrections, if they're saying, hey, listen, to do our job more effectively, more efficiently, we need this jail built, then we really need to explore that as a community, because letting offenders out early or letting them out without the proper rehabilitation, how's this game? How's this one for a point of view? An offender commits an offense. It's not long enough to go to prison. It's just long enough to stay in jail. Would we all agree that if they're held in jail, they're forced to participate in certain programs that can help them? Whereas if we just let them out, they're not going to get any help at all. So really, if we want to help the offender, there almost needs to be a period of incarceration. So then whether they like it or not to some point, guess what? You have to participate in this program, and just hopefully there can be some amazing individual within that jail that can relate to this individual, inspire them, and then they can turn their life around.
Good points. Good points. One of the things I was thinking about, you get a person who's high on ice, meth, whatever, even alcohol, and they decide to go break into someone's house or steal someone's car, whatever the case may be. And I'm talking about the felonies. I'm not talking about shoplifting. I'm talking about felonies. Right now, this guy or this gal gets placed in a holding cell until they can get in front of the judge. They have an opportunity to settle down, to kind of detox a little bit, and let a judge decide, right? Let the judicial system decide whether or not this person will be further incarcerated until their court date, or they're going to be released on bail or lowered bail or whatever. Right now, they will be releasing you all. Unfortunately, the police department will have no choice but to cut them loose, high as a kite, drunk, and let them go. Because there will be no option to hold them, because this will be the state law. There will be no option for our officers. There will be no option for the judge. You're just going to let them go. Basically, you're going to kick them to the curb within half an hour, 45 minutes, max an hour. I worry about that. I worry about that because for not just the safety of the community, but for their own safety. And I think that's the part these legislators didn't think about. They just, I don't know what they were thinking. I don't.
And I think that's where we go back to, and we touched upon a little bit earlier, when we have these individuals that do have the drug or the meth problem, and they commit offenses, they get arrested. When they don't show up for their court date, they're high as a kite. they're not stupid. They know they missed their court date. Um, so they know that there's warrants out for their arrest. They always nine times out of 10 take the position that they ain't going back to jail. So they're gonna continue to steal. They're gonna continue to rob and do whatever they can to support their drug problem, and they know that the police is after them. So when they do have contact with us, they're going to resist arrest. They're not going to go quietly because they know if they get caught, if we catch them, they're going back and they may go back for a long time. So that's where it puts our officers and our members, at risk of getting hurt because now we have to escalate our use of force, in order to apprehend these individuals. So that's going to be, I think, a challenge that's going to be even more immense with this bill going through.
Whoa.
Yeah. Again, I mean, this is coming from the trenches, right? This is coming from real life. This isn't coming from. This is real life stuff that I think the legislature should have taken into account. And not to defend them, but they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, and that is why those decisions should be left with the judiciary, because they do know. They know who's repeat offenders. They know who's the ones that are not likely to return to court. They know. This legislature, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Hey, let me just give this scenario for those that believe that this bill reform is the right way to go. Okay, let's just think. Close your eyes and listen. Just say you got a call from your grandma or your mom, and they just was swindled. And I can tell you this because I know this happened. Not to my family, but to a friend. Called me up and got swindled out of $50,000 off of a scam. $10,000, $5,000. It doesn't matter. Some clown decides to go call and pretend to be a waterworks employee and says we need to update your account. We need your name, address, social security, date of birth. And grandma did it. Grandma did it because she trusted the person on the call. These scam calls are so damn good. And they catch that person and they book them and they release them, only to go and scam another kupuna or another person. Maybe then you start thinking, "Oh, are we doing the right thing?" Apparently, these people don't know of circumstances like that. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're not aware. But it's so public nowadays. It doesn't take much to research a little bit about crime, especially here in Hawaii. So I'm kind of troubled by that. Kind of troubled that again, like I said earlier on, it seemed like they got together to figure out how they can make it easier on the criminals and not the victims. Why weren't they discussing to strengthen the rights of the victims? That's where I struggle. That's where I struggle.
Well, I would like to say something. It's going off the beaten path. But while we have the attention of our viewers, today I received several calls because everyone knew these gentlemen were going to be on our show tonight, Mel. So one of the questions came from the outer islands, asking us about SHOPO and its position with some of the police chiefs around town, and what's happening. And so I got a ton load of calls from Maui County. I had I had several calls from the Big Island as well. And of course, everything is in the wings of the new police chief that's coming about. Being the new president, Bobby, and with an amazing board, and I think you folks will have great success in representing the men and women in blue statewide. But how you folks What's some of the pitfalls that you're experiencing with places like Maui, for instance, with its new police chief and so forth? If you can say anything or address anything.
Well, with Maui, um, Chief Peltier is, I believe, on his sixth month, as the new chief of police, and he's having it hard. He's having a lot of challenges with, the department and our members, and I think um, it may have just gotten off to a rocky start when he came in, and just to be quite open about it, with us here in Hawaii and how we do things here. It's not Las Vegas. It's not, California or the East Coast. There's a little, we do things a little different here. And there's different, agencies and whatnot to interact with. But normally, if you're somebody that's the new chief of police coming in to a different department, a lot of times when you bring or you appoint your number two, or the person that's going to be advising you on proper decisions to make, normally it's my opinion that you would pick somebody internally from the department, that knows the inner workings, that knows the rank and file, that can properly give you the information that you need to make the best decision. And I think maybe just looking at it, 6 months in, maybe that's where maybe the chief could have made a different decision, instead of bringing his number two, Chief Hanks, from the mainland with him. And I understand that he needs somebody that he needs to trust, and hold dear close to him. But when you're gonna be the ultimate person to make the decision at the end of the day, you want somebody as your number two that is very knowledgeable about the department, especially if you're just coming in as a brand new chief. And with that being said, we've had several meetings with him, and for the most part, it's been going pretty okay. But we do acknowledge that there's issues there. There's morale problems. We just recently did a survey with the membership, and the results of that survey is quite alarming. The rank and file are not happy. So what we're planning on doing is we're going to be releasing those results to the community and to the stakeholders, the police commission, the chief himself, and whoever, the media and whoever wants to listen in that community. And we're going to see what's the best possible way to move forward with that. How to assist the chief to make that relationship from his command staff to our members, to make that more compatible, and how do we move the department forward, and more so how to assist him, to bridge whatever gap is missing there, because I think he needs to acknowledge that there's an issue there. And then on your guys' island with Kauai, with Chief Raybuck, we got a lot of issues going on there, and we touched upon it with the deputy chief trying to take his firearms through TSA, and I filed a complaint with the police commission, not on behalf of SHOPO, but I myself as a private citizen. I cited the standard of conduct that the chief of police had circumvented, and our position as a union is not, it's to hold the chief accountable, because he holds our members accountable when our members make bad choices or they violate the standards of conduct. And more so, it's to keep them in line. And if it was any one of our members that had done that through TSA, there is no doubt that that member would be on desk duty. They'd have their gun and badge stripped, and they would remain on desk duty for 6, 8, 10 months until the investigation is completed. And that's not the case what's going on here. So that's why I filed the complaint, hoping that the commission will listen and investigate, So with that being said, our HPD chief in Honolulu is going to be selected, we believe, on June 1st. That's another challenge in itself. And I don't want to continue to ramble on, but I'll finish up. That process, as we know, it's going to be a year. It's going to be 1 year. You know, we can find Timmy Chang in 2 weeks, but police chief, 1 year. Takes 1 year to find a police chief. So hopefully it'll end, on a better note than it started. You know, we're always critical about the Honolulu Police Commission, but we know they're doing the best job that they can. They want to get it right, so we understand that too. But like I said, let's hope it ends on a higher note than what it started.
Well, we cannot build transitional facilities either, but we can build one $350 million stadium.
Priorities, right?
So that Timmy Chan can coach the UH football team there. It's incredible. Yeah, I know we're running out of time. I know I told you guys I would post the list of the legislators, which I put up right now. I hope you guys can see it. Oh, I don't know why that thing is. Hold on here. Let me hide that thing. Okay. So I'm not going to read them off. You guys can read. Why is this thing? I don't know what the heck.
All those senators right now are thanking you, Mel, for hiding their name.
I don't know why I cannot. Hang on. I got to try to get this thing. Hold on. Let me try to. Not sure why that's showing up that way. Anyway, why don't we, Steve? You got any closing comments for our viewers? This is the deal. Like I said earlier, this bill is on the governor's desk. The only way this is going to end is if the governor vetoes the bill, and then the legislature doesn't override. And that's the only reason I'm putting the names up. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to get it up there. So the action item here is to make sure you contact your legislators and let them know how you guys feel. Let them know how you feel so they know that if, in fact, EGE vetoes, that the legislature won't try to overturn the veto, override the veto. The other thing is you got to let the governor know how you feel. His email is accessible on the at the governor's website. So please, please, please. So with that, Steve?
Mel, on behalf of myself and Bobby, thank you so much to you and Uncle Charlie for having us on and to be able to have this fellowship with you and your viewers. Please know, everybody, that the police officers that put the uniform on every day are still going to continue to work. We're still going to continue to do what we need to do, but we really could use community support more than ever. And to Mel's point, if that means reaching out to elected officials and let them know that, as a community, we don't support this. As a statewide community, this isn't what we're about. This is Hawaii, and you know what? Elected leaders are supposed to really represent the will of the communities they serve. And it seems like for this particular legislation, they've gone horribly off the reservation. And we really need to stand together, not only the community, but also, law enforcement agencies, and say, this just doesn't work here. And hopefully, and I realize it's a long shot, I hope the governor vetoes this. And even with that veto, because of how it passed, I understand that it could still be legislation. But you know what? Adults that make decisions when they realize maybe they were wrong, they shouldn't hesitate to correct it. So I would put a challenge out to any legislators that sign this bill tonight. If the governor, I'd like you to veto this bill on behalf of everybody in the state of Hawaii that thinks this is a train wreck. And the legislators, even if you voted for it, there's nothing wrong with changing your mind. Step up and make the right decision. And again, thank you for having us tonight, boys. Appreciate you, Uncle Charlie, and thanks, Mel.
All righty. Lieutenant?
Well, Mel and Uncle Charlie, thank you again, as Steve had said, for having us on to share with you folks and to talk with you and your viewers. And law enforcement today, it's a tough business. Several years ago the pendulum swung the other way, and now law enforcement is viewed differently in the public. And we just ask the community support with this bill 1567 and ask the governor to veto it. This is our community. We live in this community. We serve this community. We want this community to be safe. Our police officers across the state, from the Big Island all the way to Kauai, we love our job. We put on the uniform every day to serve you folks and to protect you folks so that we all can, be safe in Hawaii for our families. And with that being said, just thank you so much for this opportunity. Appreciate it.
All right. I think I got it. So there it is. Hope you guys can see it. Can you guys see it okay?
Crystal clear.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So I'm gonna take a couple of minutes. I want you guys to look for your district. There's all the representatives, the House representatives, and then the senators on the bottom. Screenshot this, guys. Again, the whole purpose of sharing this is so that you know who your representatives are and how they voted. And I strongly encourage each and every single one of you to give them a call their office, email, let them know how you feel, regardless of what side of the coin you're on. But more importantly, we got to let the governor know. You can go to my page. There's the link to the petition. I think we got over 6,000 signatures now. Please fill out the petition, sign the petition. It's free. That will get to the governor's desk. We really got to show the governor that this is not good for the people. This is definitely not good for victims. So please, please, please take a look at the list. Write down your district numbers, your House district, Senate district, and let them know. Okay? All right. Charles.
Well, first, I'd like to say thank you to Steve and Bobby for coming on tonight. Appreciate it very, very much, giving us an insight of what the tempo is ticking like uh, all around this state regarding law enforcement. I would like to share with the viewers out there, many of you know that I was a police officer at one time. And going back to when I first started, the monthly pay back then was $550 a month. Having three sons and a wife, trying to make a living on that. If you think that being a police officer is a money making venture, it's not. It's not. What it is individuals, a select group of individuals who, when they go through all of their training, they're considered the best of the best, giving of themselves for their community to protect every man, woman, and child in the state of Hawaii. So, again, having been part of the Blue Army, I extend to the now present Blue Army, thank you so much for all you have done, for allowing us to roam safely on the streets. I know things are getting tough, but you folks continue to protect and serve. And I just wish there were much more that as citizens we can do for you. For those of you out there that may have an insight on how we can help our men and women of our respective police departments, it doesn't hurt to go up to them. And the same way we celebrate with our military personnel, you do the same for the men and women in blue. Tell them you thank them, tell them how you feel. We're not, all of us, we're not perfect, but we strive to be as close as possible to that perfect line. Okay, we try very, very hard. So, with that said, I wish you all a very, very good night. Thank you for joining us tonight. And again, to our two guests, thank you for making time to sit with Mel and I and to discuss about this very troubling bill. But I'm sure the good Lord above hears our plea. He'll answer prayers. Back to you, Mel.
Thank you, Charlie. Echo your sentiments. Want to thank Bobby and Steve for joining us tonight. I want to thank you for your service. Thank all the men and women in law enforcement. Like Charlie said, I served 13 years with Kauai. I'm on my fourth year at the prosecutor's office as an investigator. So listen, I talk to victims almost every day. Almost every day. I'm talking to somebody that was victimized by some jackass that felt that they had the right to go rip someone off or beat someone up uh, because they're selfish people and they just feel they have the right to do that. So maybe that's why I'm so passionate. Maybe because of my background. Maybe because I deal with this still today, and I see the revolving door, and I see how people get arrested and released, and I just don't want to see this become easier for the criminal. I don't. I want to see us start working on protecting our victims, making sure that when they return home to their broken into home, or when they get their car towed back home, that they can at least be assured that the culprit, the suspect, is not going to be just let go after a little bit of paperwork. Then why aren't they doing that? No assessments, no mental drug assessments are done. It's just automatic. Bye bye. You're on your own. And I think it's just a bad bill. I think we're headed down the wrong direction. And then to utilize public safety or compromise public safety because the state failed to properly manage a correction system. It's not the victim's problem. Leaders, get it right. So anyway, sorry for the rant. I am not very happy with this thing. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. We won't have a show the rest of the week, guys. Unfortunately, I got to go get my kidney stone removed on Wednesday at Queens Hospital. I appreciate some prayers. It's a big one. So they're going to go take them out on Wednesday. I should be back in action, back home on Sunday if all goes well. So thank you guys for your patience. We'll see you guys next week. Guys, stay safe. God bless. Keep up the good work, and we will be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. Take care.
Thank you.